This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
You know, we had a guest in the audience this evening. And Vice President-elect Pence, I see you walking out, but I hope you will hear us just a few more moments. There's nothing to boo here, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing to boo here. We're all here sharing a story of love. We have a message for you, sir. We hope that you will hear us out. And I encourage everybody to pull out your phones and tweet and post, because this message needs to be spread far and wide, okay? Vice President-elect Pence, we welcome you, and we truly thank you for joining us here at Hamilton and American Musical. We really do. We, sir, we are the diverse America who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us, our planet, our children, our parents, or defend us and uphold our inalienable rights, sir. But we truly hope that this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and to work on behalf of all of us. All of us. Again, we truly thank you for sharing this show. This wonderful American story told by a diverse group of men, women of different colors, creeds, and orientations.
But don't worry, guys. Tonight we do not have to deal with the Electoral College, so...
I love Bruno Mars. I don't know what color he is, so I can't deport him. I mean, everyone, look, he looks like Mowgli from the Jungle Book. He does. All right, listen, everyone. I love Uptown Funk. It was all totally about me. It was originally called Uptown Trump. Listen, I'm gonna funk this country up bigly.
Okay, this is my Melania Trump impression. Okay, I gotta get the face right. I love my husband, President Barack Obama, and our children, Sacha and Malia.
That's spot on!
All right, here we are, shortened week, and yeah, this is like a collective societal meltdown. Glad you're with us. Hope you had a great weekend. Short week. You know, I think I've got to step in here, and we've got to bring back to the program good old Dr. Hannity. And, you know, for all these kids that need Play-Doh and coloring books and aromatherapy and hot cocoa and pet therapy, you know, served to them by their professors because they're so upset over the election. And then you've got these Hamilton guys. But you know what Mike Pence said? I wasn't offended at all. He actually said that's what freedom sounds like. That was a great line. Steve Van Zandt of Bruce Springsteen and The Sopranos, he actually said it was bullying Mike Pence. And, you know, the sad thing is this is how so many on the left think. You know, watch Donald Trump this weekend. What has he been doing? He invites Mitt Romney, who called him a fraud and a huckster and a this and a that. All the names he can think of. Undermine him every step of the way. What has he been doing? Number one, Donald Trump doesn't take days off very often. Number two, he's working just like he outworked Hillary in the final weeks of the campaign. Really, the entire campaign, he outworked her. And he's meeting with people that like him and don't like him. He met earlier today with news executives. And, he's more gracious, magnanimous than I'd be. I'm not going to meet with the heads of networks who are plotting and planning and doing everything possible to drag me down and force me to lose. And that's what CNN did, and that's what MSNBC did, and CNBC, and NBC, and ABC, and the New York Times, and all these people. And I thought it was pretty interesting in the New York Post today. Andrea Pizer wrote a piece. You know, to get into this play Hamilton, this is the 1%. By the way, I hate plays. A very good friend of mine has been asking me. He's doing a play on Broadway. You got to come see it. He's even offering me free tickets. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to try. I'm really going to try. I have a hard time saying I hate plays. I just hate them. I don't have any artistic. I know he's anti-intellectual, Hannity. Well, I read all the Harvard classics. I'd rather sit and read Paradise Lost again or Dante's Inferno. More entertaining. I'm not a big play person. But the average person that goes to that play pays like $1,000 a ticket, $800 a ticket. Well, you know what? And then have you heard this? What's that model's name? Gigi? I don't even know who she is. Never saw her. No, I've seen her before. And, she's making fun of Melania. Look, none of this is really offending me. And some of my Twitter friends are mad that I'm not outraged about it. And the reason why is they lost. And they're losing their marbles. And watching them lose their marbles, frankly, is pretty entertaining. And then Green Day. When's it been since Green Day ever had a hit? What are they, 20 years old now? So, Green Day calling him KKK, it's meaningless to me. It doesn't penetrate, doesn't impact. And frankly, what I'm thinking about that matters is, all right, getting a good cabinet and now following through on your campaign promises. Mike Pence, by the way, will be on Hannity tonight. And, and then you got Alec Baldwin, you got the Hamilton cast, you got the AMA awards, and everybody's, these people they don't know what it's like to live in Indiana. They don't know what it's like for people in Kentucky and South Carolina. They don't know. I've lived in Alabama. I've lived in Georgia. I've lived in California. I know what their life is like.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Favorite talk show moment in the history of talk radio, Alec Baldwin. We don't have time now. But it's only going to get worse as Trump begins the implementation of his agenda. Now, a lot of you are going to have your little spoiled brat snowflake. Snowflake, that's what defined as we're all unique, special, and individual, like we all have a fingerprint. Am I getting that right? It's not anything other than that? You sure I'm not misunderstanding the meaning? Because it might be some hidden meaning that I might not know about. I was just asking the crew before I came on the air. Open your microphone. Snowflake has no other hidden meaning. Snowflake means what?
It means that as snowflakes fall from the sky, given to us by our Lord, divine creator, that they're all unique.
I'm not sure that they believe in God.
Well, whoever they believe in.
Mother Nature?
Spirits, whatever.
And mankind is raping and pillaging the planet for profit? Those people?
Yada, yeah.
All right, so we're all into, so that's what it means. I'm not going to find out. Go look it up.
We're all special. No,
because you're telling me
renting.
before, I don't want to know any hidden meaning that may come out of this. Hannity used a slur because I don't know what it means and you guys don't know what it means. Because it's like, sort of like the alt-right term. I never heard of alt-right until this election. But you got the Trump-hating media. This was on Law News. This is Dan Abrams' site. By the way, it's not his opinion. It's just a site that actually has good stories on it. Anyway, Steve Schooner is a law professor at George Washington University. He's raising legal concerns about Trump and his interest in the Trump International Hotel in Washington. Well, a president doesn't have to have a blind trust. He doesn't. And this has been going on all week. And he probably will do it and probably hand it over to his kids. What?
So this is from urbandictionary.com.
Right. What is it?
Snowflake, top definition, an overly sensitive person incapable of dealing with any opinions that differ from their own.
Yeah.
These people can often be seen congregating in safe zones, quote unquote, on college
What
campuses.
is a safe zone? What is a cry room? When does a professor give children hot cocoa, coloring books, and Play-Doh? You're in college.
To be a joke, I do not believe this is happening. I'm literally about to kill myself, and I'm not kidding. You better fix this right now. I literally am gonna die. I need an ambulance.
She's very unique.
Well, that was a Bernie supporter. Anyway, during an appearance, Schooner not only raised questions about the ethics, but also said Trump could have an impeachment issue. Because you have foreign states basically paying money to the Trump organization by using their hotels. What does that mean? I guess they have to ban them from Trump Hotel? How about he just gets a blind trust? I think that would be the best thing. This guy, Michael Shannon, I've never heard of him before. He's out there promoting a movie, Nocturnal Animals. Anyway, he had harsh words for Trump and those Americans that voted for him. He suggested that people supporting the Orange Man form their own country called the United States of Moronic effing a-holes. Well, isn't that nice? Then he sounded off again, suggesting a civil war would be the only way to prevent Trump from assuming the highest office in the land. Then you got, I love Republican voters. They're really funny. Like the one guy stood up at Hamilton at another city and praised Trump. All right, if you want to have a stand-up contest, let's have it. Anyway, Republican voters are going to Starbucks, and they're saying their name is Trump. so that the people working there have to scream out Trump when their cup of coffee is ready? I guess they don't get coffee like me. I just get black coffee. What does everyone get? A frappuccino or what, I know what a frappuccino is. I'm messing around. Howard Dean, Steve Bannon is a Nazi. Representative Ellison, Trump won't drain the swamp. There's going to be more swamp creatures than ever. Heilemann, Trump's cabinet shaping up to be a group of old white men. Just this campaign is never going to end. And they are going to fight every step of the way. You already see it with the appointment of, I think, a real awesome choice by Trump, which is the Attorney General choice, Senator Sessions. And Schumer's saying on Meet the Press that, I'm not going to offer quick judgments, but it's premature to make any decisions, but except to say a very thorough, very tough vetting of Senate colleagues as well as anybody else. All right, so they're going to what? What's going to be interesting? When the Democrats filibuster and shut the government down, and the Republicans, I'm going to turn to them and say, see, that's how you fight. They'll probably fight harder than the Republicans ever did. Now, here's a guy, Jeff Sessions, and they're trying to say, they're using his full name now, thinking, well, if we use his full Southern name, then it's going to go a long way. Jefferson Beauregard Sessions the third, because it sounds really Southern. And, we'll use his full name here. All right, so here's a guy. He's had a distinguished legal career, Attorney General for the Southern District of Alabama for 12 years, Alabama Attorney General for 2+ years, United States Senator for a long period of time. He worked for inside the Department of Justice 15 years. He's, here's a guy that filed a host of desegregation lawsuits in Alabama while he was the U.S. Attorney. A guy that voted in favor of the 30-year extension of the Civil Rights Act. He even voted to confirm the radical Eric Holder. He also spearheaded the effort to award the Congressional Gold Medal to Rosa Parks, an Alabama native, civil rights icon. Co-sponsored with Dick Durbin, reducing penalties for crack possession versus, which, by the way, I actually agree with this. Cocaine is cocaine. Powder, crack, same crap, same garbage. And there was disproportionate penalties for crack versus powder. I agree. So anyway, he worked with Dick Durbin to get rid of that because many African Americans felt it unfairly targeted them. And he brought those in line with penalties for other drugs. So I think he's in many ways a Democrat's worst nightmare because he actually believes in the rule of law. And the first thing I think Trump's going to end up doing is rescinding every illegal, unconstitutional executive order. And I think that's what he's going to go about doing. And he might actually clamp down on voter fraud. There was a great piece, who wrote it? Daniel Horowitz today on Levin's conservative review site. Terminate all of Obama's lawsuits and appeals. Allow states to enforce immigration laws and punish sanctuary cities. Get rid of the U.S. Sentencing Commission. Take away their powers. Replace immigration judges that aren't enforcing the law. Deportation for criminal aliens. Properly interpret the Constitution to protect states from liberal justices and judges. Those are things that a really good attorney general would do. And probably, everyone's saying, well, is Trump going to go after Hillary Clinton? It's not going to be Trump's decision. If evidence is presented to the attorney general, he's going to have to follow the rule of law. Otherwise, if Hillary Clinton broke laws, which I believe she did, and we don't prosecute her, then that means we don't have equal justice under the law in this country. We got justice for the Clintons and the mighty and the powerful and the connected, and then for the rest of us. I don't care what anybody else says. Anyway, what's fascinating about this, all the talk about Trump, look what he's done. All these network executives, including CNN, Clinton News Network, NBC, MSNBC, and the rest of them, all brought into a room to talk to him today. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in that room. I would have loved that. Anyway, so we'll get to all of that in the course of the program today. And we've got, see what happened this weekend? 4 cops shot. Looks like more targeted assassination. Sheriff Clarke and Randy Sutton. We got Harvey Levin of TMZ. Did you see a special for it? It was phenomenal. Phenomenal. I've known Harvey a long time. We don't agree on a lot of politics. He's a great guy, and he has a great show. Pat Buchanan, we've not had him on since the election. We'll get to his thoughts on what's going on and how Trump could push his agenda. That's the only thing that matters to me right now. All I care about, I want a president that'll vet refugees. I want a president that'll call our enemy who they are. I want a president that's going to give the economy tax cuts. I'm not sure I really like this infrastructure, $1 trillion spending bill. I don't think we can afford it until the economy starts moving. That's worrying me because anytime you spend anything through a Washington bureaucracy, it bothers me. Get rid of Obamacare, become energy independent, build the wall, send education back to the states. That's a pretty ambitious agenda. And the country will be infinitely better off, and Supreme Court justices. All right, so much to get to. All right, we got the snowflake definition down, Pat. We've got all the news of the day, all the meetings that Trump is having, all the attacks against anybody that Trump dares to mention for his cabinet and in his administration. And I'm more worried about Mitch McConnell. Is Mitch McConnell going to do what Harry Reid did with the nuclear option? It's going to be interesting. We'll see.
Hannity Headline, a bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you everywhere you go. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com.
Well, Donald Trump's approval rating is up 9 points since the election. That's a pretty big jump. I think a lot of people, if you watch him, the guy does watch closely. He doesn't take many days off. He even says, I don't like to take off. I like to work. I want to roll up my sleeves. I want to get the job going. And there's obviously a lot to do to build a government. And Democrats, they're rolling up their sleeves trying to figure out how to sabotage everything that he wants to do. But let's see if the Republicans have a spine and a backbone and an ability to actually get something done. That's what's going to be interesting. By the way, I want to send a shout out. A thank you to this audience. Our friend Melissa Young. She stood up for Donald Trump, Miss Wisconsin. I'm sorry, Miss Universe, Miss Wisconsin. Yeah, she was in the Miss Universe pageant, and she's been very, very ill. And she's scared to death that she's not going to make it. She's got an 8-year-old son. And so I donated some money, and we put a PayPal. It's called GoFundMe. We have a link on Hannity.com. People can donate. Okay. And, this audience is so amazing. We've raised over $60,000 already. And, look, she's just a wonderful woman. Imagine if it was you on your deathbed and you're worried that you can't take care of your 8-year-old son. I actually made her a promise. I'm not going to talk about our private conversation. We had a private conversation. And I kept saying, don't talk to me. I said, go rest, save your energy. And she insisted. And so I just tried not to interrupt and listen to her. There's something about somebody that's facing death's door that you want to hear. I can't explain it. And I've come to really admire this woman. She's tough as nails, strong as can be. If anyone could come back, it's going to be her, but it's not looking good. So she's in our prayers, and her family's in our prayers. Some have been writing me, why is he meeting with Mitt Romney? My answer is, why not? I don't care that he's meeting with Mitt Romney. I don't think Mitt Romney should be the Secretary of State. If you call somebody a huckster and a fraud, why would you want to work with that person? It makes zero sense to me, and I think any president needs people that are going to be loyal in tough times, because Trump's going to have tough times. He's going to come under heavy fire. Bannon's come under fire for no good reason. Sessions has come under fire for no good reason. They're just looking for anything they can use to hurt Trump. That's what they want to do. This is what Democrats do. This is what Republicans don't do. Sad story about a 15-year-old Trump supporter beaten during an anti-Trump march, not match. This is in Washington. Media is obsessing over their hate speech. And, this absolute insanity, this meltdown, we saw it at Hamilton, we saw it at the AMA. Our buddy Senator Ben Sass, who wouldn't vote for Trump, let's see, he's calling for a crackdown on paid rioters. Well, how do you crack down on paid rioters? Do we have freedom of assembly or not, Senator? I had such high hopes for him. What a disappointment on so many different levels. People in Nebraska really need to reconsider in a few years, 4 years. And I liked him. We endorsed him. We put him on. We pushed him. We thought he was a great potential leader. You know, just on the Supreme Court alone, Trump gets in Supreme Court justices. It's worth the price of admission. And if you can't see that, you're not seeing the big picture. And if you act like all these words that Donald Trump said were so offensive to you, then you're not being honest. Everybody's heard them. And except for a few very devout people that I know in my life, and there are some that I just look at and I'm like blown away, full of admiration for, because I'm one of the sinners that needs the forgiveness. But unless you're one of them, cut the crap and act like you've never heard it before, because you have. So stop being so phony about it. Words of so offended. You know what offends me? All the people, additional millions in poverty and on food stamps and not working. That offends me. So pick your battles. Gallup comes out with a poll. 77% of Americans, a new high, believe the nation's divided on the most important values. Well, this is like a really shocking. We just been through a pretty divisive election. Anyway, it was after the election that they did this campaign. Anyway, the two least popular candidates in post-war U.S. history, protests are erupting nationwide, Play-Doh being handed out to students, hot cocoa handed out to students, cry rooms being offered to students, aromatherapy being offered to students, pets are being offered to students for pet therapy. By the way, when he takes over in January, President-elect Trump is expected to refocus America's leading space agency on its original mission. And that is replacing Obama's top NASA priorities of Muslim outreach and climate change. Anyway, President-elect Trump is set to slash NASA's budget for monitoring climate change and instead set a goal of sending human beings to the edge of the solar system by the end of the century and maybe back to the moon. By the way, America could use another big moment like that. We're ready for one. Proud of your country, proud of our ingenuity, proud of our brilliance. Trump says there will be hell to pay if Trump repeals Obamacare. Okay. They will rue the day they repeal Obama's health care law. It's a political nightmare for them. They'll be like the dog that caught the bus. Gee, let's take our marching orders from Chuck Schumer. Obama is going to use his post-presidency to criticize Trump. There's no surprise there. We need to take a pool bet. How do we do this? Pick the day. I'm thinking the 21st of January is probably when it starts. Although he's taking Michelle on a vacation. And the one Trump supporter, where was this? This was in, let's see, it was somewhere else. Anyway, the big news over the weekend was Mike Pence getting lectured by the Hamilton Broadway show staff, and Democrats loved the stunt. Anyway, it didn't take long for a Trump supporter to respond to the way the Broadway cast, and Broadway World reports a Trump supporter disrupted the Saturday night performance of Hamilton in Chicago. Oops, I bet that drove all the liberals nuts. You know, 1,500... By the way, this is a warning sign. If you are entering the United States without presenting yourself to an immigration officer, you may be arrested and prosecuted for violating U.S. immigration and custom laws. Border Patrol has been told not to do their job. About 1,500 illegal immigrants are crossing a day in anticipation of Trump being inaugurated. The DHS may leave known smuggling routes into the U.S. unprotected for the time, I guess, that Obama remains president. And then, of course, Obama's trying to convince Trump TPP is a good idea. You know, those damn balls of the Washington Post, I agree with the headline. I don't agree with everything in it. You know, viewed through a conventional lens, Donald Trump's candidacy was improbable from start to finish. Today, two things about his victory seem to be in sharper focus. One, his victory might be understood as the success of the country's first independent president. And second, that the Trump coalition may be even more uniquely his than Obama's turned out to be. If Trump gets jobs and gets the economy going, you know, I would say the repatriated trillions, incentivize those companies to spend millions and millions in the areas that need the most help. The Milwaukees, the Detroits, you know, go into suburban America. Also, I go in there with a bill saying I'm giving education back to your state and your community so that you parents can get out of failing government schools. and give a check. Let the parents pick the schools. Let the competition begin. It'll be a competition upward towards excellence. And the schools that have the best teachers, the best curriculum, the best success are going to draw the most dollars from parents. You know, there are these elite private schools in New York. I mean, kindergartners have to get interviewed. First graders are interviewed. No connection is going to get you in the door for these schools. I mean, it's insane. And guess which schools get the most money? The ones that offer the best education. So you do that on a competitive basis, start with inner city America, work its way out? What do you think is going to happen in these failed school districts? Oh, test scores will go up. Reading, writing, math will improve. It's going to take a generation, but it's going to happen. It is funny to watch the Mitt Romney, who called Trump a phony, a huckster, a racist, a bigot, go kiss the ring this weekend. It was pretty funny. I would bet anything he's not getting Secretary of State. Anyway, there's a lot of speculation that James Mad Dog Mattis is going to be the next Secretary of Defense. A lot of rumors about that. What they're going to do with Rudy Giuliani is going to be interesting. I think Rudy would be the great Secretary of State. I think one of the things that has become a little bit of an obstacle for him, it shouldn't be a major one, is that, his security company became in high demand after 9/11 because of his handling of what happened here in New York, and he had contracts with countries all over the world. Well, that's what businesses do. That's not pay to play. That's not, give me money, $30 million, and I'll help sign off on giving Russia 20% of our uranium. It's not the same thing. A lot of rumors Laura Ingraham could be White House press secretary. That'll be interesting. I don't think she's going to have much patience for those people, which will be fun to watch. There is some hope for people in California who never supported Donald Trump. Remember, I went out to the Fresno area, Bakersfield area, the Delta smelt and farmers. I picked up all the dry soil because they can't plant because they were protecting the Delta smelt over farmers. Well, Donald Trump might be able to get rid of that in like no time. And that would be pretty good. That would be a success. John McCain, I don't give a damn what the President of the United States wants to do. We will not waterboard. All right. I prefer we waterboard. Here's a question for Senator McCain. Senator, two guys break into your house. You have a young son or daughter there. God forbid. The two guys grab your son or daughter. You run out of the door to catch them. You tackle one of the guys, but the other guy gets away with your son or daughter. You've got the guy that knows where they're taking your son or daughter. Where would you stop in terms of extracting the information from that other guy? I'd stop nowhere. I would stop at nothing. There would be nothing I wouldn't do until he starts talking. I do what I have to do. That's my answer. You take my son or daughter, there's nothing I won't do to you. Nothing. There's a way to, the House passed legislation to block Obama from issuing new rules, midnight regulations during his final days. There's talk he may give tens or hundreds of thousands of pardons to illegal immigrants. Wow. How's that for thwarting the law? I wonder if he's going to pardon Hillary. There's going to be a big crunch. This 100 days is going to be unbelievable. It's an ambitious plan. Would be nice if he'd pardoned Clint Lawrence. It would be nice if he pardoned, Christian Saucier. He's in jail for murder for 20 years. He killed the enemy. Unbelievable. What else do we got here? Oh, the president shut down border aerial surveillance. Why would you do that except you want as many illegal immigrants in the country? Reported to Obama, will you be like Bush and not criticize? Nope. I will if necessary. Of course he's gonna. He can't help himself. All right, let's get to some phone calls here as we check in. Paul in Dayton, Ohio, WHIO. What's up, Paul? How are you?
Well, good afternoon, Sean.
Good afternoon, sir.
And happy upcoming Thanksgiving.
A lot to be thankful for.
I told your screener that I was really impressed with the use of the term snowflake.
Why is that?
Well, think about this going back to Harry Truman. even before he was president, he said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. And snowflakes are perfectly fine when they're in their own element. When you apply the least amount of heat, they melt down.
Well, I kind of agree. All right, so I get it. I love that. Yeah.
So that's it's actually the perfect analogy for those guys.
Listen, all I could say is this. If you're so mentally fragile, emotionally fragile, that the election of the president sends you into a total, complete meltdown, and you're a little student that needs a cry room, professors to give you hot cocoa, Play-Doh, coloring books, aromatherapy, puppy therapy, cat therapy, you're not going to make it in this world. You're just not. You're not going to make it. This world is much tougher. Everybody on my team, if they were like this, they wouldn't last 5 seconds on this team. You don't survive in the real world if you're like that. Anyway, appreciate the call. Let us say hi to Al, is in Shreveport, Louisiana. Real quick, Al.
Hey, Dr. Hannity, just want to say on this Hamilton stuff, my wife and daughter are coming up to New York in December. Don't know if they're going to get to see you or not, but they were coming to shop and to catch a Broadway show, and after this thing Friday night with this Hamilton issue, they both decided they don't want to even see a play while they're there. So, you know, it's these people are asking for it, and that time the majority spoke up and said, we just disagree with that.
Listen, I don't know why you'd want, I'm not a play guy, so maybe I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm just not. But I got to be honest, I don't really feel like if I'm going to a play, and for that play you're paying like $800, I think they give away 10 tickets a night. Tell me if I'm wrong. It was in Andrea Peiser's column today. I think they give away like 10 tickets a night for people, or 21 tickets a night, whatever it is, for like very cheap. Everybody else is paying $800, $1,000. This is for the 1% liberal elite. They say, oh, do you like the play? Yes, I love the play. Let's go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, shall we, afterwards? And we'll have a bit of, we'll have some caviar, a little champagne, just a sip. 5 bottles later, one more sip. I'm sorry, I can't stand that life. I can't.
Sean Hannity. This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
Secondly, sir, speaking of your predecessor, he made sure to offer essentially no public criticism of you during your time in office. Will you equally withhold public criticism for President Trump, even if he attempts to dismantle much of what you've accomplished?
Look, I've said before, President Bush could not have been more gracious to me when I came in. And, you know, my intention is to certainly for the next 2 months just finish my job. And then after that, to take Michelle on vacation, get some rest, spend time with my girls, and do some writing, do some thinking. So I want to be respectful of the office and give the president-elect an opportunity to put forward his platform and his arguments without somebody popping off in every instance. As an American citizen who cares deeply about our country, if there are issues that have less to do with the specifics of some legislative proposal or battle, but go to core questions about our values and our ideals, and if I think that it's necessary or helpful for me to defend those ideals, then I'll examine it when it comes. But what I do know is that I have to take Michelle on vacation. And I'll knock on some wood here, because we got 2 months left. I am extremely proud of the fact that over 8 years, we have not had the kinds of scandals that have plagued other administrations. And when I met with the President-elect, I suggested to him that having a strong White House counsel that could provide clear guideposts and rules would benefit him and benefit his team, because it would eliminate a lot of ambiguity. And I think it will be up to him to make determinations about how he wants to approach it. I know what worked for us, and I think it served the American people well. And because I had made a promise to the American people that I would not fall into some of the familiar habits of Washington, that I wanted a new kind of politics. This was one indicator. And at the end of 8 years, I think I can say to the American people, I delivered on that commitment. That's what's made the modern world. And there have been times where we ourselves have not observed some of these norms as well as we should and have been accused of hypocrisy. Here in Latin America, there have been times where countries felt disrespected and on occasion had cause for that. There are times where we haven't observed these values in our own country and have fallen short of our ideals. But that basic structure is the reason why the world is much wealthier, much more secure, and yes, less violent, healthier, better educated, more tolerant than it was 50 years ago.
All right, there's the president. We ought to take a poll and see how long it's actually going to be before the president weighs in on trashing Trump, which I think is probably going to become his full-time job once he leaves office. Look, probably within a matter of hours, it's going to be a dismantling of every illegal, unconstitutional executive order that Obama has written and signed in the last 8 years. It will be a dismantling of Obamacare, a dismantling of his immigration policies, a dismantling hopefully sooner than later as it relates to his economic failure and certainly his foreign policy failures as well. Patrick J. Buchanan is with us. We've not talked to him since the election. Pat, you and I both thought it was possible but difficult, and he pulled it off. I call it the forgotten man election.
Well, I tend to agree with you. That's a terrific victory. I don't know that Michigan's decided, but Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and some of these other states that he carried, and surprisingly bringing those working class and Catholic voters back home to the Republican Party the way Reagan did and the way Nixon did. It's an historic achievement. We got an historic presidency coming. I think in some pretty exciting times are ahead. There's one thing I will say about the Trump presidency. It will not be boring, Sean.
Listen, I don't think there's one thing that's going to be boring. It's actually a really exciting time. Look, you've been through an election or two. I've been through an election or two. You got to admit, this has been one of the more exciting elections in our lifetime.
I think that's right. I've never seen a more exciting election. And the results of it, the very fact that they were unanticipated up until about 9 o'clock that night when a few people began to see it, and even those of us who had been basically supporting Trump in the primaries and supporting him in the general, I think came to believe in the last couple of days, and maybe his folks even did as well, that he was going to fall short. I know I felt that way that morning. I went out to the polls, and I was talking to the mom of our congressional candidate, Barbara Comstock, and I told her I think there's going to be an opening in the Senate maybe in 2017.
Wow.
When Kane goes in as vice president. Did not happen.
Wow, so you really thought you didn't have a lot of confidence on Election Day?
Now, on Election Day, I thought we was going to fall short, I'll be honest.
Well, that's fair. I mean, look, I was putting the odds pretty much at 50-50. I didn't know how it would fall. I mean, my hope was that what happened, and that was sort of Brexit-like. My hope was that all of these people that I talk about or have talked about out of work, in poverty, on food stamps, not part of a recovery, that they would come out in droves, and I think they did, and I think that's why it was the forgotten man election. And I never thought that Hillary was resonating in any way.
Well, let me say, I did not, or I suspected that he would not be able to pick up Florida, Ohio, and North Carolina, and Iowa, and then start getting states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and states like that. I just felt that, he couldn't pick up all the tricks. He would fall short. But let me say this, Sean. He won this election fair and square in that electoral college by a good margin. He's going to have to win his election again. You've got these folks who are unreconciled to his presidency. You saw that crowd up there at Hamilton booing him. You've got editorial pages denouncing this act and that act and stirring up things. They're getting ready with mass demonstrations at his inauguration. We had some at our inauguration in '69 with Nixon. But I think he's going to have to, in effect, win his presidency a second time, because the other side is going to come challenge him extremely hard on the immigration issue, on sanctuary cities, on some of his appointments, and I think he's going to have to go to battle, do battle for him from day one.
I think he's going to have to do battle, but I also think the American people, look, his approval rating is up 9%.
They are with him.
I think the people are with him, and I also think that Congress, I mean, I was a little surprised I was very unhappy with how people like Paul Ryan and John Kasich and Lindsey Graham and even Jeb Bush treated him, and Mitt Romney was the worst. But, you know, look at the parade of people going in to kiss the ring all week. Frankly, it's getting to the point where it's a little nauseating, Pat, but, you know.
Well, let me say this, without talking about any particular nominee, they're very able people, frankly, and I'm quite happy with the people who have been named so far in many ways, and many of the people that are going in there, but I do believe this. He's going to need in effect, in domestic terms, a war cabinet. He's going to need people who are loyal to him and can go through a fight and will stick by him to the end. And I would think some of these cut-and-run rhino Republicans should not apply.
Well, I agree, and it's going to be interesting to see if they get the spine transplant that they've needed. And
don't count on those transplants.
Well, one of the things I said on TV the other day, and listen, I talked to Paul Ryan.
Right.
He called me last week, and we had a good conversation, and he said, you know what, people like you are right. Donald Trump tapped into something I didn't see and I wasn't understanding, and I agree with most of his agenda, and we're going to work very hard to implement it. So
I think that's exactly right, and it's the right thing to do. And Trump has two agendas now. One of them is the core conservative Republican agenda, which you and I agree with, and almost all Republicans, even establishment Republicans, agree with. You deal with taxes and regulations and Scalia-type justices. We're all on board there. But he's got another agenda, and it's a populist agenda, and it's an agenda of securing the border, and it's an agenda of preserving the character and nation of the country, and it's an agenda, frankly, of staying out of unnecessary wars that proved so damaging to George W. Bush, that Lyndon Johnson was broken by Vietnam. Truman was broken by Korea. And my one fear is that somehow, events may drag him or people may drag the president-elect toward a conflict which is really not in our vital interests.
The only thing that I could see him doing, because we can't have another Vietnam or another Iraq where we ask brave Americans to fight, bleed, and die, and then we pull out after they have given their lives, because these wars always get politicized, Pat. We don't have the wherewithal if we're going to fight a war, we better fight it to win it, and winning has to be the objective or stay out of it. The only thing I see that might come to shove is if we think the Iranian mullahs are getting or close to getting nuclear weapons, there might have to be some type of action to take out those sites.
Well, let me just say this.
And they're spread all over their country, deep into the ground. It's not an easy task.
Let me say this, Sean, on that. This is where you and I think, parted company before. The 17 U.S. intelligence agencies in 2007 and again in 2011 said Iran has no nuclear weapons program. Since then, they've got inspectors in Iraq. They've taken all the uranium out of the country. They're not producing the heavy water and the plutonium anymore. And there's all these inspectors all over the place. So I think what Senator Corker ought to do is call up all these intelligence guys, sit them down right in front of them and say, now tell us, you said twice that Iran has no nuclear weapons program, the last time in 2011. Do they have one now? And if they do, where is it being done? Because we got cameras in all the major sites.
But not all the sites.
If it's secret and hidden, demand the inspectors go in there now.
Pat.
And that way you'll have the Europeans with you.
Listen, I agree. And we wanted anytime inspections. But, they ended up paying ransom for hostages without any guarantees. And they're not even our inspectors. And they get, 28 days to clean up the mess so that
you can't, if you're building a bomb and you got stuff in there,
but
you got satellites overhead and it's a secret site and they won't show it, I would come to tend to agree with you. My view has always been, Sean, the Iranians don't want a bomb.
Well, then why are they spinning these?
And we got 5,000, and
why
the Israelis got a couple of hundred. That's the end of them.
Why are they spinning their centrifuges then? Why do they want plutonium then?
They got a good. The reason they pulled all this stuff was to convince the Americans that they were doing what they had decided not to do.
But remember,
which was build a nuclear weapon, and they got $150 billion for it.
But remember, it's the same game that North Korea played with Clinton. In other words, they would start up their program, we'd offer them incentives and money, and they'd stop for a little bit, and then they'd start, and then they succeeded.
Well, they built and tested and exploded a bomb, and they're working on the missiles. They don't have it perfected. Let me tell you, if we saw a test coming up where Iran looked like they're going to test a device, then we ought to have people right there immediately. And if not, I go along with you. But what I don't want, Sean,
I agree
is
with
another
you.
war.
I don't either.
Weapons of mass destruction that don't exist, and all these Americans killed. And as Trump himself said, $6 trillion lost.
Listen, I don't want another foreign conflict. And I'll tell you, one of the keys to getting out of the Middle East, in my opinion, is we have more energy, more natural gas, more oil in the ground, more coal than the Middle East combined, where not only we could sustain ourselves for a couple of hundred years, but we could help Western Europe so they're not so dependent on Vladimir Putin.
Well, exactly. We got all this shale oil, and if we can negotiate with the Indians, we may have some pipelines.
Well, I mean, I think it's in everybody's best interest, and it's in our best national security interest.
Clean coal. I mean, here Donald Trump is exactly right. We got all forms of energy. Some of it, you got nuclear, you got clean coal, you got oil, you got gas, you got hydroelectric,
we got it all.
You got wind, you got all this. Go with all of them.
We don't need to be importing oil from people that hate our guts. All right, last question, real quick, yes or no. Will he get a conservative justice on the court?
I think he will. Look.
All right, these are yes. This is the yes. We only have a minute.
Ainsworth and Carswell, just go up there and put this time another Scalia on if you have to name 5 of them.
I agree, and I think that Mitch McConnell needs to think about the nuclear option. Will he get his corporate tax repatriation bill in?
I believe so. I think some Democrats will go with it. Depends on how low a tax he sets.
Will he get Obamacare overturned and free market savings accounts?
I think he'll get the features of Obamacare overturned. But they're going to retain those features, the 26-year-olds and the...
All right, got it. That's fine.
Of it.
Will he get the border wall built for the most part?
He'll get a part fence, part wall built.
Okay, yeah, that's what he said. Will we get education sent back to the states?
I'm not sure what they're going to decide on that. I just don't know what they're going to decide on.
Well, that's what he said. I think it would be a great idea.
For Common Core.
Yeah, but I hope not. But Trump said no. Will we get energy independence and on a path towards it, at least in the 4 years?
I think Trump was. I think this is one reason the market's rolling up.
I agree.
I think he's going to unleash American corporations and American investors and American entrepreneurs and American.
Is it a mistake to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure?
Is he going to? Yeah, I think that you'll get the Schumer.
Is that a mistake? Is that a mistake, though?
Do I think? Look, I do think we need to repair our roads and bridges and all the rest of it. I don't know that we need that big train that Jerry Brown's building out there in California.
Yeah, he can have his own train. Good point. All right, Pat. Listen, what an election. Thank you, my friend.
Oh, great election. Take it easy.
Hannity Headline, a bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you everywhere you go. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com.
Well, my father thought it would be good for discipline reasons.
That's a pretty extreme thing to send your kid away to upstate New York. What kind of discipline problems were you having?
Well, I was just somebody that was rebellious.
Did you resent your dad when he sent you?
No, not at all. I understood.
Did he sit you down and say, here's why?
Well, he said, I want to shape you up.
My understanding is business school was not your first choice.
Well, I wanted to be in a business that you're very familiar with. I wanted to make motion pictures. I absolutely did. I was going to apply to USC.
What was it about? I mean, that's shocking. Why?
Well,
what was it that literally was going to make you break from what your dad did and start a career in film?
I just liked it. I always liked it. I liked the glamour of movies.
Freddie is standing in the middle there.
Right.
He died at 42, really from alcoholism.
I've never had a drink because of my brother.
Does it worry you that you might have that gene, something inside of you that if you took a drink, you wouldn't stop? You might turn into what happened to Fred, and does it scare you?
All right, that was from I guess you'd call it a documentary. It was called Objectified, about Donald Trump, and it was hosted by TMZ's Harvey Levin, and it was on the Fox News channel, and the ratings are in, and it was a breakout, huge, massive hit, even beating many of the big networks. Harvey's been a longtime friend. He joins us now. How are you?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
I got to tell you, first of all, I'm so proud of you. The special was just riveting. You know, I've interviewed Trump all of these times, but when you're in a campaign, you don't have the time to get into the nitty-gritty of the person. Like I was doing a lot of town halls. You did something that nobody else in the media did in this campaign, and you showed a side of Trump that I think a lot of people didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, the campaign was about issues and attacks, and, you know, there was very little room to get reflective on who somebody is. It was all about what they said that day. And what we set out to do was to say, let's ignore all of that, and let's go back to, you know, from childhood on, using objects in his life that mean something to him that he can kind of relate to and become a touch point, and then kind of get to know who the guy is that maybe will help you understand why he does what he does today, who he is today, you know, what got him here. And that was really the point of this, and, you know, I hope it gave that kind of insight. I mean, I was happy
it definitely
with what we got
did.
out.
I mean, the stuff that you were talking about that we just played about him being sent off to boarding school to shape up by his father, right. I mean, that was a big part of his life. His brother dying at 42. I thought his answer about not wanting to beat himself, and if somebody beats him, that's fine, but he doesn't want to beat himself, shows a winning attitude. There's so much I got out of this, and a very, you know what, his guard was down. That's what I felt.
Well, that's the thing, Sean, and you know him really well, and I got to tell you, I mean, I think you know him better than me, but I do know him, and especially during the campaign, you know, Donald Trump rarely would show weakness. And I'm not saying this is weakness. Or he would rarely show vulnerability. And I didn't know going into this thing, you know, everybody has weak points to their character, strong points, they're vulnerable. And I didn't know if he was so pre-programmed to not showing any of that I could get anything. I mean, I knew I wanted to try and I knew where I wanted to go, but I was a little bit surprised at how much he opened up.
How well did you know him before this? And by the way, I watched even some of your coverage on TMZ. By the way, your show is the funniest show on TV. I want to talk about that in a second. It is the modern day reality show meets candid camera moment every day, and it's hilarious. But
well, thank you.
But I watched. Did you have a relationship? Because that's what I wanted to know.
I knew him, you know, over the years, but I knew him as, you know, as a reality TV star and businessman, and we would cover things from time to time. And, you know, I would talk to him on the phone occasionally, and we had a friendly relationship, but, yeah, I mean, that was kind of it.
Yeah, because, look, I mean, Hollywood's not exactly the business out there in Los Angeles known as a conservative bastion. But I didn't feel you had any political motivation at all. As a matter of fact, as somebody who was supporting Trump very openly, I had wished that aired before the election. It was, as you said, it was reflective. He let his guard down. He was, in a way, I felt a vulnerability he would not give me.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I haven't really talked about this, but we asked, I talked about it a little bit, but we asked Hillary Clinton as well to do it, and she declined. And after we shot it, we kind of collectively said, look, we don't want to do this to influence the election. It wasn't meant to be a partisan thing, and we chose not to air it. And, you know, I didn't do this to get him votes, to make him lose votes. I did it because I really wanted to get this thing. I wanted to kind of understand who he was, but when we kind of looked at what we had, we thought, you know what, this really does show a dimension, and we don't want to do this as a partisan thing, and we shelved it. And, you know, when he won, it became a different situation because now it's not about him winning or losing an election, it's about understanding who the president is, and it just made more sense.
Yeah, but I think you got a lot out of him that nobody else saw. You know, it's funny, his approval rating today is up 9 points from Election Day, and I think, like, we saw him meet with Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney, who called him a fraud and a huckster. He's meeting today with the heads of networks. He met earlier today.
Right.
You know, with the head of CNN, Jeff Zucker, and Phil Griffith from MSNBC. These were networks pretty much dedicated to defeating him, from my perspective.
Well, that's his clear view. And, you know, I would love to have been a fly in the wall.
Me too.
With Zucker, especially.
Me too. By the way, I wish the TMZ cameras were there.
Yeah, me too.
By the way, you know what I'm really thankful for in my life? That because I don't go out a whole lot, I've never had a TMZ camera in my face. Ever. Because you catch all these people coming out of restaurants in Hollywood. It is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It's not, it's.
No, they're always nice. That's the thing. And the dopey actors and actresses, they just say, hey, Harvey, how are you? Hi, TMZ. But they're so stupid. They get so uptight. And like then the security guards come around and a fight breaks out. It's hilarious.
We got to get you to Medeo in L.A. because you would be awesome to be on the show. I'd love that.
Oh, that's where I need to go, to Medeo in Los Angeles. That's really a great place for Hannity. I don't even know. I've never heard of the place, Harvey.
Okay, I'll give you the list before you come out here, Sean.
But no, whatever the list is the list. That means I'm going to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. That's what the list will do for me.
Okay, well, if that's your place, we're there.
Oh, well,
I would love to get you on the show.
Oh, listen, I'd do your show anytime. You're a friend. Well, let me ask you, this is a personal question, and I'm not, look, you've got a job that's very different than my job. You don't give opinions, and I don't want to ask you what your political views are, because I don't even think it's fair. I just love the special, and you got a lot out of him that I don't think anybody else could have in a way that nobody else had. So I guess my question to you is, how differently did you feel about him after that interview, which was very personal?
I mean, the truth is, this is more the Donald Trump I've known over the years than the guy who we've seen over the last 16 months. That when you, look, I went back there 3 or 4 times before we actually shot it. And I was in the building, and we were, setting this thing up and everything. And, you talk to an elevator operator or somebody who works on his staff, housekeepers or whatever, and they've been there for a long time, and they really like him as a person. I mean, that's one of the things that really struck me, that there, a lot of times you can kind of really get to know somebody or know who they are by, how they deal with, the elevator guy or whatever. And they like him.
No, they actually love him, because I've been over to Trump Tower interviewing him a bunch. They love their boss.
They do. And so you got to think, okay, wait a minute. You got a guy who can be really polarizing, on stage. That's not the way he could possibly be with all these people in that building. And in fact, to a person, they were all just like volunteering how much they liked him and the family. And so, look, what I've known over the years is this guy who can be funny on the phone, and he can be, insightful and...
Yeah, but I also love, something though, Harvey, this is the world and the environment of politics today. He did not plan, obviously, his entire life to run for president. Because if you're planning to run for president, you're not going to go on Howard Stern's show. Yeah, I mean, and he wasn't given scripted, phony political answers. He even told me I wasn't that into politics, and so he sort of was finding his gut and his instincts, which I think are naturally conservative, and then fine-tuning it over a lifetime of dealing with government bureaucracy. And he realized, hey, look at all these people that are getting screwed over by government. Look at all these jobs we could be creating if we do A, B, and C.
I think what you said is central to how he's going to do, because the one thing I think everybody acknowledges is he's not this political animal who calculates everything he says and does. And I think, to me at least, that's one of the key reasons for his success. Now the question is, how does he channel that? Because it tends to be, because it's less calculating, it's got to really be well thought out. And I think that's the question, is that, when you become president, obviously you make decisions that you've never had to deal with before. And the good part of that is he's not this calculating guy. Now the question is, how is he going to channel it? How is he going to, absorb all of this and then turn it into policy? And I think we just got to see.
Don't you think the early signs are? Look, I even tweeted out earlier today, I couldn't be that gracious or magnanimous and invite Mitt Romney and the heads of networks that wanted me to get crushed. I don't know if I'd be that gracious. I think that is probably a part of him that really, I guess, sees that the country is really divided. There's a poll out today that shows it's more divided than it's ever been, and that he wants to bring the country back together. And I think he's reaping the benefits of reaching out to even the people that hated him the most.
I think that's true. That said, I will tell you, I have problems with a couple of the people he's appointed. And, I'm not going to, say this is going to be fantastic. I don't know. I do have some problems just in terms of views. And ultimately, I mean, the good part is that I think he keeps his own counsel to some extent. But I am a little worried about a couple of the people. It's bothersome to me. I don't like people who I believe, make overtly anti-Semitic remarks. I don't like, the idea of being a gay man. I don't like the idea that there is some intolerance.
But I can tell you on both of those issues, look at the people that have come to Steve Bannon's defense, even guys like Alan Dershowitz and Joel Pollack,
I get it.
very prominent Jewish Americans.
That headline bothers me, Sean. I got to tell you.
But I don't know what quote you're referring to, but I have not seen a direct quote from him. I've heard there's a speech that he gave that he talked at length about his support of Judeo-Christian values. And I think Donald Trump is probably like me and most conservatives in the country, where I'm fairly libertarian. Why do I care what other people do? That's none of my business.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, that when I say he keeps his own counsel, I'm just being really honest with you. There are a couple that bother me, but I do think, again, it's funny because I do see him more as a libertarian, and he's always struck me as the kind of guy where it's like, if you're not hurting somebody else, go live your life. And that's kind of the way I've always thought of him. And
I think that's accurate. And by the way, I think most Americans are that way, even strong conservatives like me. You know what? We're all Americans here. We need jobs. We need to protect the homeland, and we need to keep the world safe. That's what we got to. To me, it's really that simple.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think that's been his compass, and and look, we'll see. I think here's the thing, and I think you're right, where all of a sudden you see his poll numbers go up. I do think that people are, they're looking at, a guy who at least seems to not be poisoned by politics, because that's been the big complaint about Washington, is that people are just so poisoned by it. They lose their humanity. They lose, emotion, and it all becomes, am I going to gain votes or lose votes? And I think a lot of people are saying that's not him, and that's a good thing. But now the issue is, what does he do? And I think time's going to tell that.
Listen, I want to work out. I want him to hold him to his promises. I want him to take on radical Islam. I think we've got to vet refugees from countries, speaking of gays and lesbians, where they kill them, and that women are treated horribly and told how to dress and told they can't drive or told if they can go to school or work, where Christians and Jews are persecuted. So I think we got to. That's why I support extreme vetting. I think if he builds the wall, if he follows through on his economic growth plan, free market health care savings accounts, energy independence, education back to the states, I think the country's going to be infinitely better off, because I believe those ideas work. I think Kennedy and Reagan both proved it.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, the way this happens, and it's like, it's funny because my training is in law, and I look at, some Supreme Court justices where presidents were so sure that they were going to do one thing and they go a completely different way.
Souter,
and so
Roberts,
I've always kind of been tempered by that. I mean, I look at Earl Warren and
David Souter.
Yeah. And you just never know until they assume the office.
Congratulations. The ratings were massive, and it was great to have you on Fox News, and we hope you'll do more.
I really appreciate it. And, Sean, thank you so much for all your support in this.
Oh, you bet. I thought it was spectacular. Loved it.
Really appreciate it.
All right, my friend. Thank you. All right, when we come back, 4 cops shot, assassination attempts in a couple of the instances. We'll have a full report. By the way, Dr. Hannity's coming back tomorrow. All you people that need aromatherapy, all you people that need your hot cocoa and you need your cry rooms and Play-Doh and coloring books, I'm going to help you out tomorrow. You can call Lauren now. We'll put you on the list, all right? 800-941-SEAN. Call now if you want hot cocoa. Dr. Hannity's going to help you out if you're a big Hillary supporter, you're depressed, you're sad, how to deal with your relatives over Thanksgiving. 800-941-SEAN.
This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
Stay right here for our final news roundup and information overload.
Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. 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 Pigs in a blanket.
All right, there's the chant, Black Lives Matter. News Roundup Information Overload Hour here on the Sean Hannity Show. 800-941-SEAN, our toll-free telephone number. BuzzFeed has a reporter, and she'll actually be on TV tomorrow night. Her name is Rosie Gray, and she's written a lot about alt-right. And I keep talking about the alt-radical left. I'd never heard of what alt-right was until this election season, and now it's being used by everybody in the mainstream media. Now, I argue that it's being used to smear, slander conservatives, but there's the alt-right crowd, and they're trying to attribute racism and anti-Semitism to conservatives, which, by the way, is the tactic we see every 4 years, frankly, every 2 years during elections. And I said, okay, well, what about the alt-radical left? What is the Occupy Wall Street movement? What is the MoveOn.org movement? What about Black Lives Matter? That was Black Lives Matter. You heard chanting, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them now? And pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. Now, is that alt-radical left? Is Obama inviting them to the White House? Is he alt-radical left? One of the arguments I make about Obama, he is literally locked into his rigid ideology. He's going to cling to that till the end of his 60 days here. And that's all he's got. That's all he knows. That's who he is. I mean, he's got 60 days left. That's it. Done. Over. And then within months, everything he's done in the last 8 years short of the debt, you can't get rid of that, will be gone. All of his unconstitutional, illegal executive, gone. And I doubt Black Lives Matter activists are going to be invited to the Trump White House. Now, why do I bring this up? Because over the weekend, we've had 4 cops shot in a 24-hour period in 4 cities. 2 of the shootings are called targeted. So here we go again. Targeting police officers for assassination. Anyway, 2 officers shot separate incidents, what authorities are calling targeted attacks. One died. The other was shot twice in the face, but he's expected to survive. Barely. How do you survive a shot to the face? Anyway, but they were 2 of the 4 officers shot yesterday in these 4 incidents. San Antonio detective writing out a traffic ticket to a motorist shot to death in his squad car late Sunday morning outside of police headquarters by another driver who pulled up behind. And the police chief identified the officer as Benjamin Marconi, 50, a 20-year veteran of the force. Sunday evening, police posted a picture of the person that they said they were hoping to identify in connection with the case. They also released a video of the person via their Facebook page. All right, so hopefully we'll find them. And then we've got, Monday morning press conference. He said investigators had several ideas who the suspect might be. Anyway, CBS San Antonio, there were reporters there. The president of the Police Officers Union knew Marconi personally. This guy leaves behind 2 kids. Sad. Great guy. And you've got to wonder, why is this happening? Why does this keep happening? In St. Louis, a police sergeant was hospitalized in critical condition, but expected to survive after being shot twice in the face in what the police there called an ambush. Now we're ambushing and assassinating cops. So now we have 4 incidents, one after another, and you got to ask, what in God's name is going on, and why would a president ever invite a group that chants, what do we want, dead cops, when do we want them now, to the White House? That, to me, is alt-radical left. Sheriff David Clarke, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, former police Lieutenant Randy Sutton of Vegas, 34-year veteran himself, and spokesman for Blue Lives Matter, national organization made up of police and their supporters. Guys, welcome to the program. Our thoughts and our prayers obviously go out to these families. I mean, it's now open season on cops, Sheriff. We go through this how many times now?
Yeah, and it's gone on for the last couple of years. I mean, this has always been a dangerous profession, but people have been emboldened now because of this dangerous, hateful rhetoric from, among others, the President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States Department of Justice, and people from Black Lives Matter. Look, this stuff just rips my heart out, and I say this each and every time I hear this. At any time a law enforcement officer is killed in the line of duty, a little of every law enforcement officer in America dies with them, because there, but for the grace of God, go we. So my thoughts and prayers are with them also. But I'm encouraged by this much, since because of November 8th, ushering a new era, we're going to have a man in the White House, now President-elect Donald Trump, but in the future it'll be President Donald Trump, who has unambiguously supported the American law enforcement officer. We're going to have a different rhetoric. His nomination of Jeff Sessions to be the Attorney General of the United States is going to help as well. We'll finally have a friend of the American police officer, someone who sees us not as an adversary like President Obama, Loretta Lynch, and Eric Holder did and do, but we'll have somebody who sees us as an ally in the pursuit of justice in the criminal element.
I want to get you, Randy, your take on all this. What are we going to do? How do we protect these officers? We've got to get them more gear, for number one. I mean, does every cop in a squad car now have to have like a bulletproof face mask on, if there is such a thing, and helmet? I mean, what are we going to do here?
That equipment doesn't exist. There is safety equipment that officers do have that I was actually taken away from them by President Obama. He went in and ordered his Department of Justice to remove some of the, quote, militarized equipment that was given to police. So his open warfare on the American law enforcement officer has been stunning. But this recent spate of attacks has shown what the influence of Black Lives Matter and some of these radical hate groups have spewed out, and people are absorbing that ideology, Sean. And that's what's so frightening about this, is they are willing and feel empowered enough to attack law enforcement officers who are simply doing their job.
You know, you think of the job that cops have. It's in some of these cities, it's horrible. You know, one of the things that frustrates me is every 4 years, and Sheriff, we discussed this during the campaign, it's the same old narrative. I mean, they try to paint Donald Trump as a Klansman. I mean, he doesn't even know who David Duke is. He has no idea who these people are. It's not the world he ever lived in, and not a worldview he supports. But that doesn't stop Democrats every 4 years from suggesting Republicans, conservatives are racist, what always pisses me off, by the way. And but that's the narrative they advance. But here you got Chicago, nearly 4,000 people dead in the 8 years Obama's president, 3,000 shot this year alone, mostly African Americans.
You know, you're right. The Department of Justice, Sean, the Department of Justice is more important, is more targeting law enforcement and law enforcement officers and law enforcement agencies rather than work on an issue as incredible as 4,000 shootings in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, Sheriff?
Well, you know, they throw this word around, this racist word, as if it's some sort of sport when they have nothing substantive to say, nothing positive to say about an individual on the right, and they just throw the race card or the racism label at them. Look, I got to know Donald Trump over the last couple of years on the campaign trail and in some private moments. There's nothing racist about Donald Trump. There's nothing racist about his nominee for the post of Attorney General of the United States Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions. I got to know him as well. This label has also been placed on the American police officer. A broad brush has been painted against every law enforcement agency and every law enforcement officer in America. And this has led to the maligning of their character, their integrity, their sacrifice, their service. And I will say this again, I've said it before, probably on your program a number of times. There's only one governmental group in the United States of America that truly believes that Black Lives Matter, and it's the American police officer who puts on that uniform, goes down there, risks their lives every day, Sean, to protect good, law-abiding black people that live in those communities.
Let me ask you, Sheriff. I know you became close to Donald Trump during the election, President-elect Trump. Are you will you consider joining his administration? Have they asked you?
Well, first of all, the president calls on you to serve. You step up and you fulfill that duty. It would be an honor to serve in the Trump administration. He's got a lot of decisions to make, a lot of people to pour through. He's well aware of who I am, and if that call should be made, of course, I would step up because it'd be a duty and an honor to do so. But that's going to be up to Donald Trump, who he wants to surround himself with. And
has anybody reached out to you so far? If you don't mind me asking, if you can't say, just say you can't say.
Well, I'd rather not get into that because what it does is it starts to heighten the speculation. So I leave that alone.
Yeah, I understand. You know what, Sheriff? I think you'd be a great leader for law enforcement, and maybe somebody that can explain. I don't know. I'd like to see some high government official. You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see them going into Chicago, going into the high crime areas, going into where the shootings are, and saying this has got to stop. We're destroying so much great human potential. Over what? Well, what are we all fighting over here?
Right, and Donald Trump has made that a big part of his campaign and reaching out, and he's made it clear that the conditions in the American ghetto across the United States are unacceptable. They deserve a better quality of life. They deserve better paying jobs. They deserve better schools to send their kids to. These are the sorts of things that will help beat back those urban pathologies of poverty, mass unemployment, broken homes, these sorts of things, gang involvement. You need a positive message. He sold that message. It was a great start, and I expect him, I expect him not because I'm telling him to, because I know what kind of man he is. He's a man of his word. He will live up to that, and I tell the people who are in cities like Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, Milwaukee, hang on, help is on the way.
I will say one thing. I mean, we saw how he really outworked Hillary Clinton in the final weeks of this campaign, and since he's been elected, he's still working Saturday and Sunday and meeting with basically anybody and everybody in the hopes of putting together a good administration. Randy?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was very proud to have been asked by Mr. Trump's campaign chief policy advisor to put together a plan of the needs of law enforcement officers, and they were very open and outgoing as far as wanting to help the American law enforcement officer. And Sheriff Clarke, I got to tell you this, that I get contacted by hundreds of police officers every month, and you are held in such high esteem that you would honor law enforcement by taking a position in Mr. Trump's presidency.
Randy, I'm humbled by that. I'm honored. It's the American law enforcement officer on the front lines, the men and women that I send out in the harm's way every day in my community, but all across this country. They're the heroes. They're the ones that we need to support. And like I said, it is an honor to be able to stand up and defend their character, their integrity, their service, their sacrifice, their commitments to making their communities better places to live.
I got to tell you, and the difference between chaos and outright anarchy are the brave men and women in uniform. So these families have sacrificed way too much. We've seen too many dead police officers, and now we've got one assassination after another. And these families now have to, have kids growing up without their fathers and mothers, and they're being shot and killed. And then, of course, we've got an atmosphere where if there is an incident, well, we blame the cop first. We rush to judgment. We're judge, jury, and executioner, and they don't even get the benefit of the doubt ever. I mean,
Sean, I don't know if you're aware of this statistic, but we are now up to almost an 80% rise in the murders of police officers from this year from last year, almost 80%. And the ambush style targeted assassinations are up about 500%. That's a stunning topic right now.
Yeah. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it. Sheriff Clarke, Randy Sutton, thank you, sir. All right, when we come back, wide open telephones, 800-941-SEAN, if you want to be a part of the program. By the way, reminder, tomorrow in the program, we'll do at least a full hour of calls for those of you that need a cry room and coloring books and Play-Doh and aromatherapy, pet therapy, doggy therapy, catty therapy, whatever you need. We're going to be here for you, all right? So give Lauren a call. Tell her you want to be on Dr. Hannity. How do you deal with your crazy Trump relatives over the holidays? How are you going to survive it? 800-941-SEAN. Don't forget Hannity tonight. The anti-democratic agitators, not only at the play Hamilton, but all around the country. We'll talk to Mike Pence about that and the transition. Also, Dr. Carson and Laura Ingraham both being considered for positions. Apparently, Dr. Carson's rethinking it. We have Melania mocked at the American Music Awards and Green Day calling Trump a racist. We'll get into that. And should we use enhanced interrogation techniques? Ollie North is in Mosul. And Dr. Sebastian Gorka, set your DVR 10 Eastern, Hannity on Fox.
Hannity Headline, a bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you everywhere you go. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com.
Don't worry, guys. Tonight we do not have to deal with the Electoral College, so...
I love Bruno Mars. I don't know what color he is, so I can't deport him. I mean, everyone, look, he looks like Mowgli from the Jungle Book. He does. All right, listen, everyone. I love Uptown Funk. It was all totally about me. It was originally called Uptown Trump. Listen, I'm going to funk this country up bigly.
Okay, this is my Melania Trump impression. Okay, I got the face right. I love my husband, President Barack Obama, and our children, Sacha and Malia.
That's spot on!
Unbelievable. 24 now till the top of the hour. What was that? The AMA Awards this weekend. And, yeah, the liberal Trump derangement syndrome meltdown is going on completely and fully. And, you know, I got to tell you, you know what's amazing about none of these people understand what life is like for somebody in Indiana, for somebody in Michigan, for somebody in Pennsylvania, for somebody in Ohio, for somebody in Kansas or Utah. They have no clue what life is like outside of their little Hollywood bubble. You know, with their pampered, you know, they get their mani-pedis, facials, their massages, their Botox, their whatever it is that they do, these people. I have no idea. All I know is I work and I work. That's the life I've known. I couldn't sit an hour for a massage if I tried it. I can't do it. I can't stand it. I can't stand somebody stranger touching me. Creeps me out. Why do you think that's so weird? What are you laughing at there, Ethan and Jason? What's so funny?
Linda has a massage chair in her office. You can use that.
Yeah, well, I would probably deal with the stupid chair. I've seen the chair, but that was for when you were pregnant and you weren't feeling well and still coming to work every day to what? The day before you downloaded Liam. I mean, it was unbelievable. By the way, that kid, 10 pounds, linebacker, the cutest kid in the world. We love Liam. He's family now. Liam can do no wrong. What does Uncle Sean say? Liam is my hero. Liam does nothing wrong. I'm like the grandparent now. I love that position. Give candy and cookies and treats, and I don't care what Mommy says, just like would treat the dog. You want a jump treat? Go ahead. Do whatever you want. It drives Mama Lauren crazy. What, Jason?
No, how is it somebody who does as much workout stuff as you do not have a massage once in a while?
Do you get massage? Them? No, I don't. I don't like people. What, do I want some guy touching me? No, I don't want anybody touching me.
I get massages about twice a year.
Yeah, but that's from the girls at Coyote Ugly that you're hanging out with.
Jesus. It's always sex with you, man.
No. You go to Coyote Ugly, a bar that is covered with bras and girls dancing on the bar, and you're telling me. I'm just pointing out that's your favorite place.
Yes, that's my favorite place. I don't know what that has to do with
Coyote.
Getting a massage.
Has anyone ever said, hey, I heard you guys talking about our place?
Down there, no.
The movie was on this weekend. It just so happens they started watching it.
Well, that's the reason why most people go is because they've seen the movie.
Yeah, they've seen the movie. No, I don't. Linda, do you get? First of all, who has time for mani-pedi, facials, massage, and Botox? You know, but look.
You ever hear of a weekend?
Yeah. If you got kids, forget it. There's no such thing as a weekend. If I'm lucky, I'll go play golf and drink beer at 7:30 with some friends of mine, but that's about it. We've actually had beer at 7:30 in the morning playing golf. Isn't that terrible? That is so bad. Coors Light. And it's like if you drink two of them on an empty
Coors
stomach.
Light, that's not really drinking.
No, but you feel it. If on an empty stomach, you totally feel it. It's hilarious. And I play better, by the way, when I have a Coors Light. I don't know why. It's a little swing fluid.
Is it possible you think you play better?
No, I score better. And my brother-in-law is a scratch golfer. He actually got me a little better than I used to be, but I don't have the time to play like I want to. If I did, I'd be good. But you know what? I don't think I couldn't do that every day. I got to work. I've got to do something. I don't know what I'm going to do. Can you imagine me not working? Can you imagine? I'll be riding around in a car, and I will talk to myself. I'll give monologues to myself. This is my 30th year. I'll go insane without this microphone. You know, I'll be riding around Yes. Let's see. Howard from New Jersey's calling in. Hi, Howard. Hi, Sean. First-time listener, long-time listener, first-time caller. So what's up, Howard? Well, I want to disagree with you on that. I'll have conversations with myself. You know what? They have padded rooms for people like me in my older age. That's why nobody in radio ever gives up their show, ever. You notice every single person in radio, the minute they get out of it, they all die. Everybody. Am I right or wrong? I don't mean this in a bad way. It's just a fact. You might as well count the days. You're done.
Who retires young, outside of Neil Bortz, who's still alive?
Well, Neil Bortz is doing great, actually. Bortz didn't retire young. He's almost 70.
That's young. That's young for you guys when it comes to.
And all he did was harass me this election year that he's not going to vote for Trump. I said, fine, you're helping elect Hillary. And then he actually said the last text to me, I don't want to fight with you because I was being annoying. All right, speaking of Howard in Toms River, New Jersey. Howard, how are you? Listening to the all-new AM 710 WOR. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Sean? Thank you so much for having me on the program.
What can I do for you?
I first of all want to thank you for helping us get Trump elected. Appreciate it. I think you did an amazing job. We all rode on your back.
Well, you're
I just
very
want to
kind.
point out.
By the way, I didn't get Trump elected. Donald Trump did the job
helped
himself.
Out and
you know what?
A lot had to do with you.
I am happy. I have a lot of hope that he's going to be a great president. I hope for our country's sake. We can't afford more failure.
I agree. For the last 9 years, we're busy taking down President Obama.
No.
We were ripping apart for a very good reason. And all of a sudden, Obama was very nice to Trump. He took him into the White House. He said we're going to have a smooth transition. He's going to help him out in the beginning. And I think after all of that we ripped him apart with, we should give him some credit for, trying to give over the power to the next president in a smooth fashion. And a lot of people are protesting on the street. If they hear you praising President Obama, I think that would change their feelings.
People are not going to believe me. If Obama had no capacity, he's in his final 60 days now, and it's just a matter of time. He's going to be, I predict, criticizing Donald Trump regularly because he can't help himself. He was indoctrinated a rigid, radical ideologue, alt-left radical in my view, and he's always remained one. Where's the sister soldier moment?
I agree with you.
Where's the era of big government is over? The end of welfare as we know it is over. He doesn't have that moment. And as a result, he stuck to his ideology, and his ideology is proven yet again to be a failure.
100% agreed. But there's one thing he did right. Let's give him credit. Why not make someone happy? Even though he has a different ideology than us, and everyone, the whole right wing, all the conservatives, and most people that think normally, I think you have to work to make a living. But still, there's a lot of people that follow him. Yeah. There's a lot of people that we don't think are so normal. Ex-president and to the nation, and a smooth fashion protesting on this. A lot of people that are praising the street. That hear Obama, I think President Obama, that would change
people
their feelings.
Believe me, people are not going to. If Obama, believe me, Obama had. Listen, but I'm telling you right now, they're all lining up to crush Trump as quickly as they can. You watch, you'll see. Sinead is in New York, also on the all-new AM 710 WOR. What's up, Sinead? How are you?
Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm good. Glad you called.
I'm calling because my daughter, who is 20 years old and in college, is one of these snowflakes.
By the way, the snowflake, I guess that's the term. We're all special. We're all unique. And one of the college kids that needs Play-Doh and a coloring book and aromatherapy and a massage and hot cocoa, one of those kids?
Well, thankfully she hasn't gone that far. She's just been completely off the wall angry that Donald Trump was elected and Hillary wasn't. Meanwhile, leading up to the election, she was saying how much she even hated Hillary Clinton. She was a big Bernie Sanders supporter.
How could you be a Bernie supporter and see how the DNC and Hillary ripped off Bernie and the fix was in from the get-go, and then support somebody that ripped off your candidate and cheated him? I don't know how you could possibly do it.
I'm trying to get through to her. I'm like, wait a minute, you hated Hillary Clinton 2 weeks ago. Why all of a sudden? She goes, well, she's better than him. I'm like, well, I'm not seeing that logic because I don't see how Hillary Clinton could be better than anybody. But it's really hurtful in a way because she was raised in the same household that my other kids are being raised in. She's the oldest of 5. And sometimes it's all out war between her and my 17-year-old son because he's very pro-Trump and, so was I, so was my husband. My husband came here from Ireland when he was 15 and he's worked since he got here. And he has a successful business in New York, and she has benefited nicely from her father's hard work. So
Listen,
it's irritating whenever I hear her.
Remember what Winston Churchill said. If you're 20 and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. Your daughter has a heart. If she's 40 and she's not a conservative, that means her brain hasn't formed.
Well, we're just really hoping that once she actually gets out of college and gets a job and has to actually start supporting herself, she'll change.
Listen, I put my son recently on a budget. Well, everything's so expensive, Dad. And I'm like, yeah. I'm glad you figured it out. But they get their first paycheck.
She'll be like, oh, I'm poor. I'm like, you are not.
It's funny.
Had a job and is in college.
I've never really talked a lot of politics with my kids. I never felt that I had to. And, they'd be driving in their car with their mother and they'd have to listen to this show. And they picked it up on their own. And both of them, I will say, wanted Trump to win. And my son met Donald Trump at one of the debates. I brought him to one of the debates with me and really enjoyed. And Donald Trump couldn't have been nicer to him. And he really enjoyed meeting him. My daughter wants to meet him.
What's disturbing, though, Sean, is what she learned in school. Like, she got very political out of middle school into high school. And it was, the United States, loves going to war. They're always at war with people.
Well, Sinead, stay on the line here, because Rich in Chicago, at The Answer, our affiliate in Chicago, he's a trauma specialist. What kind of trauma do you do, like post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff?
Sometimes. I've actually worked with some soldiers from the first Gulf War, but also primarily with children who have suffered domestic violence, sexual and physical violence, and the trauma related to early...
By the way, that's horrible. So what do you think of all these, the aromatherapy, the Play-Doh, the coloring books, the hot cocoa served by professors? What do you think of all this?
Well, quite frankly, if they were 3 years old or 5 years old, I might be able to understand it. However, as a 20-year-old, absolutely not. This is a terrible symptom of liberalism. They lack the basic coping skills of a 5-year-old. I have a 5-year-old. I have a 5-year-old nephew who could cope with this better than these people.
And what do you say to Sinead? What should Sinead tell her daughter this week when she comes home for Thanksgiving?
I think really this is, I can't give professional advice, but as a concerned citizen of this country, American, I would say learn some coping tools that will help you regulate your emotional stress, raise your stress tolerance, your ability to handle no or obstacles, learn to be self-reliant. There's some great essays out there she should read. The Thoreau essay, the Dylan Thomas essay, Rage Against the Dying of the Light.
All I can say is I can't handle this, Rich. I can't take it. I almost want to slap him in the head and say, grow up.
To be a joke. I do not believe this is happening. I'm literally about to kill myself, and I'm not kidding. You better fix this right now. I literally am going to die. I need an ambulance.
That was a Bernie supporter.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know what to say to these kids. If it was my kid acting like that, I'd just grow up.
Yeah. No, thankfully she hasn't been as bad as that. But, and what started it was, she got all this liberalism from high school. They're teaching them in high school that the United States, is constantly at war because they just love going to war. The American Revolution could have been prevented if they didn't start wars with everybody. The British government had to keep paying their colonist taxes, or raising their taxes because the colonists just love picking wars with everybody. And I'm like, oh, my God.
All right, well, I got to run. Hang in there, Sinead. And you know what? We're going to do a therapy hour tomorrow. How to deal with your crazy relatives or how to deal with the trauma of Donald Trump getting elected. We'll serve hot cocoa over the phone. All right? We'll give you Thanksgiving prep hour on the Sean Hannity show tomorrow. All right? Dr. Hannity will be back. All right, that's going to wrap things up for today. Don't forget Dr. Hannity tomorrow. If you need pet therapy, cry rooms, Play-Doh, coloring books, cocoa, I'm here to help, all right, if you're upset. Don't forget Hannity tonight, 10 Eastern, Fox News. We have Vice Presidential-elect Mike Pence. How did he feel about Hamilton? What does he think of the agenda, the process of the transition team? Also, Dr. Carson and Laura Ingraham will weigh in. Larry Elder, Ainsley Earhart. Ainsley's book, by the way, still #1 in the entire country. Her book, Take Heart, My Child. Pretty amazing. It's on Hannity.com, by the way. 10 Eastern tonight, Hannity, Fox News. Thanks for being with us. See you tonight. Back here tomorrow.